I am glad we're here together in spirit, mind, and digital. Because I certainly need it this week. It's been a long, long week of activity. And I don't know, I get tired when I celebrate at my age now. It used to be energizing. And Jana, we just celebrated our 75th anniversary here at the Oakland Center. And we had a big parade, a car parade around the parking lot on Saturday. And safe with masks, and everybody stayed in their car, but we had the whole courtyard and the parking lot decorated with different iconic ministries and historical facts. And it took 2 days to set it up and 2 minutes to tear it down. But it was a great event. And then we went into our Sunday celebration, and then all the world news happens, and then we come to Wednesday. So this is our chance just to sit between Sunday services and and reconnect with our family, our village. And I welcome everyone tonight, and especially you, Jana, from coming from such a far way. Peter is from Portland. He was our furthest reach, a member of ours up in Portland. But you get the pin tonight for long distance. Our oases are structured to be informal, intimate, and rich, and that's the experience we have planned for you tonight. Our annual theme is 2020 Spiritual Vision, and our monthly theme, and Constance is speaking tonight on it, and it's Cosmic Connections. It's themed around that, what to do with that, and she's got a wonderful program planned for us today. If you are here for the first time, Jana, I invite you to sign up for our Village News if you haven't already. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But welcome, we're glad to have you here. And to improve the quality of the transmission in Zoom, everybody but the speaker will be muted, both their microphone and their camera. It helps give us a clear presentation. Tonight our speaker is Practitioner Constance Chapman. She's our administrative coordinator. Not only that, she's just a lifesaver upstairs, that's for sure. She takes care of all the background business. As the facilities, I report to her directly and indirectly, and we do a lot around the center to get things done. So I'm grateful that she's here to speak. She's one of our practitioners as well. Always has an open ear, always has an open heart, and always delivers something open-minded for me to contemplate. And I know she'll do the same for you. So Constance, with that in mind, thank you for being here in advance. And I'll turn it over to you for an opening prayer, and we'll get started.
Great. And I'm just going to know that the sound is absolutely perfect and that everyone can hear exactly what they're supposed to hear tonight. And so just with that, let's just remember and know that there is only the one God. There's only that one source. There's only that one divine energy that is everywhere present. And that energy is an energy that is intelligence. It's got a divine intelligence that is unlike any intelligence that as humans we know. It has got a love that is beyond any human love that we can ever experience. And yet it is everywhere present, which means it is part of us. So while it is beyond anything that we can experience in these human forms, it is of us, around us, and through us. And so how good it is to know that that's who and what my life is. And how good it is to know that it's the life of everyone on this call. Everyone who's on the call now, everyone who's coming on the call. And so I just speak my word, and I just claim that this evening is good and very good, and that everyone who shows up is exactly the right people who are supposed to show up, who are here for a reason, who get what they need out of it. And so I'm just so grateful for knowing this, and I'm so grateful for everyone being here. And I'm so grateful for knowing the truth of the one. And so I just let it go. I let God be God. And so I say, And so it is. And so good evening, and I'm very happy to be speaking tonight. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that happened in a minute, but what I'm going to talk about tonight is staying connected in a disconnected world. And the only way to stay connected in any situation, well, it's not Zoom, though does Zoom help? It's not Facebook, it's not Skype or FaceTime or Instagram or TikTok even. The only true connection is to our source, to ourselves. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. And I just want to start and do a little recap because so much has happened in the last 9 months. I mean, Paul was talking earlier about the theme of 2020 vision. Remember back to January when that theme seemed something totally different. When we were talking about 2020 vision, I'm sure everyone here had their own idea of how that was going to unfold. And we were probably all wrong. Because on New Year's Eve, the first cases were reported from Wuhan, China, of this new thing that looked like pneumonia. They weren't quite sure what it was. By January 31st, 31 days later, the World Health Organization had issued a global health emergency. By February 3rd, the U.S. had declared a public health emergency. Then on March the 6th, we had the first of the 21 passengers on the cruise ship right off the coast of California tested positive. By March 11th, the World Health Organization had declared COVID a pandemic. And then on March 16th, Alameda County, the county that our church is in, announced the lockdown, announced that we were now sheltered in place. And so our center closed. I left that center that day, locked up, and wasn't sure when I'd ever be back. Then on 4 days later, on March the 24th, California announced the lockdown. And then for a short time after that, it seemed as if the whole world was united in silence and stillness. Because that was happening almost everywhere. We were not the first. In fact, we weren't the first at all. Much of Europe had already gone into sheltering. Not everyone in the United States wanted that or accepted that. But we did have a month or a month and a half of 2 months of getting used to sheltering in place, of dealing with toilet paper hoarding and figuring out how to get to the grocery store and figuring out that we weren't going to starve in a month and figuring out what to do with ourselves. And during that time, we also took the whole Oakland Center online. And so then on May 24th, George Floyd was murdered by the police in Minneapolis in front of cameras. And demonstrations and the outrage started, and it continues today. And so that added another layer to what was going on. And also in May, the first major forest fire started in California. By June, the first tropical storm had landed in Louisiana. And so to date, we've had more tropical storms and hurricanes than above. And as of today, CAL FIRE reports that they're still fighting 22 major wildfires in California. And since the beginning of the fire season, we've had 8,300 wildfires that have burned over 4 million acres in California. And then at 4:47 a.m. this morning, there was a 2.6 earthquake 1 mile from here. And I woke up and I thought, oh, okay, earthquake on top of everything else. So in addition to dealing with the pandemic, we've been dealing with racial inequality and bringing that to the fore and looking at it and saying how we can deal with institutionalized racism. We're dealing with climate change and the impact that that's having on all of us on the West Coast, because I know that it's impacting my friend Jana in British Columbia as well. So is it any wonder that we're feeling a bit off balance and that we can feel a bit off balance? What if someone on January 1st had told you all these events were going to take place? What would you have thought? I know I would have thought that they were not in touch with reality, or that this was some new conspiracy theory that was being um, circulated. But it's actually, what it's like is it's almost, since January 1st, it's almost like we've been living in a continual earthquake. So we get our bearings, we figure out, okay, how we're going to deal with this, and then something new happens. It's like we get thrown to the ground. So we get back up, we figure out how to deal with it, something new happens. And so it's almost like that's getting normal. And all that is happening while we're physically separated from our community and friends for 7 months of those months. So being connected is never more important, and it may be never as difficult as it is right now. So I want to tell you a little backstory about how this came about for me to talk about this. I went on my first vacation 2 weeks ago since, well, in quite a while, but since the pandemic started. And because my work is very much on the computer and it's very much on my left brain, I mean, I counted at one point that I worked with at least 14 different computer programs in order to get this job done. I knew that I was out of touch. And that I really, my focus was to get away and to get back in touch with my spiritual self. And my idea was that I had some books I wanted to read. I was going to take them with me. Well, a few days, the day that I was supposed to leave, I wasn't feeling well. I couldn't really, and finally I just said, okay, get yourself out, get in the car, drive. And if you're not feeling better, you can come home and cancel the whole thing. But of course, as soon as I got out, I started to feel better and had a beautiful drive up 101 to Southern Oregon. And once I got there, I realized I hadn't brought any books. The only book I had was a Kindle that's a murder mystery, which was fine. But I didn't have any of those spiritual books. So what I did was I spent hours each day sitting by the water. That meditation slide was what I looked at out of my that was right outside where I was staying. So I sat by the water, and there were a lot of water birds because when the tide went out, it was a mud flat. There was a lot of food there. So I watched the Canada geese. I watched the pelicans. I watched all sorts of other things. One day I was out, and there were some sort of, I think it was a hawk that was in the tree right next door. And then there was, down the road, there were these beautiful beaches, some of which were in open ocean. There were some stormy days, so I got to be there during storm and wild winds. And so I got what I wanted. I started to come back to myself to contemplate nature and God. When I left, I knew the importance of keeping balance in my life, of somehow staying connected to my spiritual self, even though my job can take me out of it. So I was talking to Reverend Jeff when I got back, and he had decided at that point that he didn't want to risk speaking tonight because he was starting a new treatment protocol, and he wanted someone else to do it. And he was sort of talking to me about, well, who can we get on such short notice? Can we talk to this person? And so I finally said to him, I spoke up and I said, well, why don't you ask me? And he replied that he didn't want to put any more on me. And I explained it at my work. It isn't a matter of the number of hours. It's a matter of what I'm doing that takes me away from myself. So actually speaking was something that I really wanted to do. So then I was able to start reading the books that I thought I needed to read on my vacation. And so you see, I thought that I knew what I needed on my time away. And I did in some sense, but I thought that I knew how to get it. Instead, what I needed was what I got. And I think that that is a really important thing to remember, that sometimes if we can get ourselves out of the way, we'll get just what we need. So I had a week of very little computer, of being outside in all weather, a week of watching the water, of seeing the fog come in and cover the land as if it didn't exist. At the same time, I was sitting there and the sun was on my back. And then the sun dissipated the fog and the land reappeared. I had a week of listening and feeling the soft wind and the wild, stormy wind, of watching the waves crash on the rocks, a week of listening to the birds, a week of listening to myself and my soul, a week of being connected with my God self. So the question I came back with was, how do I maintain that when I get back into my work life? Because the reality is that the world is a divided place right now and will remain that way regardless of the outcome of the November election. Jerry Thomas, a Catholic mystic who is also steeped in Eastern philosophy, tells a story that I think is really appropriate right now, so I'm going to tell it to you. And he says, so here we have God sitting, he talks as sitting somewhere in heaven, which is, he's Catholic. I mean, you know, so however we see that, whether we see that there's God flowing around or doing however you envision God, contemplating its existence and thinking, here I am, perfect in all ways. I am unbounded, I'm absolute, I'm all-knowing, I'm all-powerful, I'm all-loving, yet somehow I am incomplete because I've never known limitation. I've never differentiated my pure being. I'm like this magnificent, unblemished energy, perfect and boring. So God goes on to think that it will manifest itself in form as a myriad of universes and experiences all facets of its creation. It will send out from its very being individualized aspect of itself to know this creation, but there is a problem. God recognizes. If these individualized experiences, beings go out and know that they are an individualized aspect of me in creation, they will never know limitation because they'll know that they are me. They know that they are God, and they'll know it with every cell of their being. And so I'll know, if that was the case, I would know I'm Paul. Paul would know he is Anthony. I would know I am Jana. Jana would know she is everyone in this Zoom call. And there would be no differentiation, no limitation. So God says, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them forget their divine nature. They will forget that they are me and think that they are them. I will command them to go forth to experience and be all that they can be, and then I will call them home to me. I will then be complete, having known incompleteness. I will be differentiated, knowing separateness, and my one identity will be full and complete by including their identities as part of me. So what I took from that is that duality is actually a part of our journey. And disconnection is part of our journey. So at some point in your life, you started to wake up from the dream that duality was the only reality. Because there was a time period, perhaps when we were first born, we knew that we weren't, but we're taught to forget that. And then we think we're separate. We separate from our parents. And we begin to think that there's us and them, and that is the reality. And so maybe you started to wake up when you first arrived here, or maybe it was much earlier. But as waking up humans, we're living with this paradox. We know on some level that we're all one, and we live in a world whose nature is duality. And we forget. We disconnect from ourselves. So the question is, how do we keep a balance between oneness and duality, between connection and disconnection? Well, when I thought about it, I thought the very first thing is that I have to recognize when I'm disconnected. And it took me a little while after I had started taking this online and working in a new way before it started to creep up on me that, yeah, there was something different in the way I was living my life. So I came up with a number of questions. So what does it feel like in your body when you're disconnected? What actions do you take when you're disconnected? I'm putting this in the chat and with a lot of typos. What emotions are you feeling? And are some emotions more likely to throw you into disconnection? And then what kind of thoughts do you have when you're disconnected? So, so I want you to think about that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. And no, that's not what I want. I do not want that. Okay, so I'm gonna open the rooms. Most of you've got some rooms with 2 and a few rooms with 3. So what I'd like you to do is to go into that room and talk about that. Talk about and really see if you can come up with how is it that you're feeling? What are you doing? What's your body like? And what thoughts are you having when you've forgotten who's and who you are? Because it happens to all of us. So I'm going to open the rooms, and you just have to go in.
Too short. Too short. We needed more time.
It was short. It was. I was just.
You want to go back in?
If we can get,
I can put you back. Say that again.
if I can get the same person, because I was in midstream.
Oh. I don't. It's random, isn't it? Or
I think we should just continue our share live, Constance.
we can go this. This is fine.
You have stirred up the waters, Constance.
Yes, this was very good. It's a very good subject. Thank you.
Okay, so what I'd like one person from each group to just share a little bit. So the first group was Anthony, Sam, and Zoe. So would one of you like to just talk a little bit about what came up in that group and what you didn't have time to discuss?
I will, because I was kind of in the middle of something. So
Okay.
what I was saying was that my feelings when I'm feeling disconnected completely depend on what I'm feeling disconnected from. So if I'm feeling disconnected from my spiritual truth, then I can feel frantic. If I'm feeling disconnected from from friends and family, it's a matter of loneliness, sadness. If I'm feeling disconnected, I can feel disconnected from my body. And that's a very frustrating feeling for me. So as far as my thoughts when I'm feeling disconnected, my thoughts can run the gamut from well, this sucks, to I don't have a clue as to what I'm going to do. I can get kind of panicky about it. I deal with depression on and off. And one of the things that makes depression particularly nasty is that it lies to you. And it tells you if you're feeling disconnected, well, yes, of course you're disconnected, and you're not ever going to become connected again, which is where my spiritual practice comes in. As soon as I can feel that intense negativity, I know what I need to do. And if I can't do it myself, that's when I run to my practitioner, to my prayer partner, to anyone who can remind me who and whose I am. And yeah, I'll end there.
Okay. The next group was Jana and Maureen. Yeah, it is possible to unlock your video. Just a second, Jana. 1 minute.
And then go ahead and share, Jana.
Yeah, sure, I can share. Okay, here we go. There. I thought the Canadians, for some reason, weren't allowed to show their videos or something, but anyhow, I tried my hardest, but no, I mean, I echo a lot what was said there. You know, definitely feeling disconnected and feeling it in my body, feeling it in my heart, my abdomen. And then it just starts all these things around, oh, you're unlovable, all the thoughts that certainly aren't helpful at all to be, you know, experiencing, but it just sort of perpetuates it even further. And then, I mean, of course, actions, I was saying to Maureen that I just isolate myself even more. So it just becomes this perpetual disconnect.
Thank you. So the next group was Paul and Tana.
Tanya, turn on your.
Tanya, it's Tanya.
Do you want me to share? Turn on your camera if you can.
Sorry, I'm cooking.
There.
So,
I had to rush back over.
Tanya and I both agree that we've had an overwhelming week. And Tanya, I needed you to give me the word that I used in our share. I forget what it was. I was either overwhelmed or exhausted or something to that effect, because there's been a lot going on in my physical world, in my spiritual world, in my service world. And Tanya's got a heavy duty job now teaching kindergartners over Zoom. But I had an epiphany during this week. Tanya, do you remember what word I used? Overwhelmed?
I don't remember what word
it was. Overwhelmed and exhausted mixed together somewhere, but and that's very unlike me to feel that way. So I reached back to something and I was in the middle of telling you about it, so I'm going to finish it. So I reached back to a spiritual practice that Reverend Sally and I came up with on a Wednesday night, and it's called the I Can, I Will, I Am, a 3-step progressive affirmation process, meaning I Can opens me up to the possibility, I Will allows me to commit to it so it will come into form, and the I Am is when it is in the form. So I can, I will, I am. So I came up with this little exercise, which I used as a grounding prayer today, Tanya, for our group. And that's when we got cut off. And so the first thing I do for the I can is I breathe in peace and I exhale anxiety. And I do that for a couple of cycles. And I really let that take over my body, that divine knowledge. So that's the I can. So then I'm committed to it. And then I know a truth. And the truth is truth and justice will always prevail. That's a truth. So that furthers my commitment, the I can. And then all of a sudden I realize I am in that space that I started out in the I can and the I will. So I explored it, I committed to it, and it came into fruition. So I ended my little series with love conquers all. because that's the superpower truth, right? So I just go through that exercise every time I get overwhelmed or exhausted. I just stop and I go, I can, I will, and I am. And then I focus on those three sayings in that process. And it gets me through it. All of a sudden, my body relaxes. I feel like I'm no longer overwhelmed or overextended or exhausted. So that's what I wanted to share with you, Tanya, and I'm hoping it comes across to, that's where we were going, I think.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay.
So then the next group is Alice and Peter. So which one of you wants to share?
Alice, you want to go?
Sure. So when I was one thing that came to me was this is something you can contemplate over and over and over again, because a couple of minutes isn't really enough time to fully go into it. And I will work with this some more. But what happens for me when I'm disconnected is sometimes what happens is I'm disconnected from my body. I'm either in my head or I'm spaced out or I'm ungrounded. And I think the emotion that, what came to me was the emotion that probably throws me off the most is confusion, because I lose my center and I forget who I am. And then I'm sort of lost. And then I forgot the other question. But Peter, do you want to say something? Because you need to finish yours.
Oh, well, yeah, it had to do with where we went with what was going on. And I had said that I reach out. I have a prayer partner, Peggy. Hi, thank you. Is my prayer partner, and we talk every week, and that's very helpful for me. And reaching out either to family, I find that being in my own space, especially here, I live alone, and well, with my cat, and I can, like Alice said, I can be in my head, and I can have things go in a kind of a circular thing. So I try to do meditation, and the connections that I have with my spiritual partners and the Zoom. Honestly, the Zoom meetings is a really helpful thing for me to get reconnected with other people and with people that can bring me back to my grounding, to that spiritual side of me that I know keeps me connected and in touch. So that's been very helpful.
Great, thank you. And then the last group was Vicki and Peggy.
Vicki, you wanna go ahead?
Unless you wanted to finish your thought, because I think you were kind of didn't get quite a chance to finish what you were saying.
Oh, well, let me see if I can get back to that thought. We kind of came upon something that we both agreed on, which is when we feel, what does it feel like in our body when we're disconnected is a lack of comfort. Something is different from whatever it is our routine is, our normalcy, how we generally operate in the privacy of our own homes and inside of ourselves. And what I was saying is when that happens, I'm feeling a little, I can, as we say a lot of times, oh, I'm just feeling a little off today. I don't know why, I'm feeling a little bit off today. And I said, when I'm getting to feel like that, well, the actions I'm going to take have to do with comforting. I'm going to want to not do whatever it was on my to-do list, that whether I wrote the to-do list or whether I'm carrying it around in my brain, which is more likely than not. I'm going to want to meditate. I'm going to want to sit still, because underneath this feeling of not being myself is a kind of like a rumbling discomfort underneath. And so I don't know it's there until I sit down to comfort myself. And comforting myself means I'm going to meditate. I'm going to just simply sit down and I'm going to just be still. That's what's on my mind, is that I just want to be still. And when I do that, I begin to recognize this the essence. I begin to recognize my connection, because that is the question. How do I get back to being connected? How do I get rid of these feelings of disconnection? And that everybody has touched on something that I agree with. But that's what I was going to say, Vicki, is that either I'm going to make myself a cup of coffee, or have some lemonade. There's something that is going to comfort me, and then I'm going to simply, and in addition, I'm going to simply sit still. And those emotions, and it does come up emotional. This discomforting thing starts, as Vicki and I were agreeing, it starts you thinking all these negative thoughts that turn into self-judgment, questioning yourself, second guessing your own judgment, your own goals, your own actions for the day. You're literally, what am I going to make for breakfast actions even? You start saying, oh no. So that's some of that bubbling thing I'm talking about. There's an energy that is in me that I know is something that I need to calm. Once I get there, then I'm feeling much more connected with the trueness of myself. And I notice that my thoughts begin to change as well. I start feeling and thinking about the magical power of the oneness. I may not be verbalizing it or anything, but I'm operating with a different kind of spiritual expectancy that I'm going to be manifesting. I'm manifesting all the time. And that gives me a lot of comfort. So Vicki, I'm complete. Vicki, did you finish?
Yeah, I agree. And if I choose, I see it's a choice. So if I choose to stay in my stuckness of feeling unsettled, I just feel more unsettled. And sometimes I can't help it. I have to. But my nature is not to be that way. It's like meditation is really important in my life. I do yoga and teach yoga. So I have that tool all day long that I'm either doing myself or working with other people. And that really is helpful to me. But when I'm really in it, I go off just like I'm a human being, like everybody does. So, and then, coming back to finding positivity in your life and reinforcement like we're doing tonight is really comforting. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I have to say that in true science of mind fashion, everyone has already jumped the gun into the second part I was going to talk about, because you've already done it. So the thing is that once we recognize that we've forgotten, we have to remember again. And almost everyone has talked about how do they do that. And I just want to, like right now, Reverend Sally and Reverend Tony are teaching spiritual principles and practices. And Zoe is TAing that. And as I understand, he got to actually teach it last night because Sally was stuck in her getting a tire or something. And all those practices are there to help us stay connected or reconnect when we forget. And they're there to help us embody the spiritual practices. So in case you haven't seen them, I just want to show these to you because this last couple of years, Home Office has actually sort of organized all of our practices into different headings. So spiritual mind treatment, of course, stays in its heading of its own. And then they've got one called practicing the presence, and that was the meditation, being mindful, and visioning. I noticed that a lot of people talked about meditation. People talked about spiritual mind treatment. Then there's direct revelation, which is like wanting to get directly into hearing and understanding. That's where visioning comes in. I put intuition there as well, because when we're tuned in and listening to our intuition, then self-awareness, which is silence, spiritual coaching, which is your practitioner, journaling, imagery, therapy. Gratitude is another whole spiritual practice. Compassion, which involves forgiveness. That's how Jan and I met, was actually taking a class on forgiveness. And doing sacred service, which I think almost everyone on this call is quite involved in sacred service. Then the intentional manifestation, and a few people mentioned that, and sacred study. Now, I put music at the end too, because it wasn't on the list, but it seems to me that music is something that we use a lot as well to help us get back into a place. Maybe what it does is help us get back into a place where we can remember and do some of the other things so that we can get out of the negative long enough to actually pick up the phone and call somebody. I don't know, but I just wanted to show you that. And ask the question of really what is, like, of all of those different categories, which is the one that you go to the first to get back into remembering? So if there's a couple people, oh, Maureen is playing with her kitty. I can see that.
There you go.
That's a spiritual practice.
It certainly is, huh?
It is.
Constance, I'll go first, Constance.
Okay.
You know, that's an interesting question. What do I do first? And it jumped right out at me as a letter D. I get very quiet. I silence. I go into silence. It's an interesting thing that I live alone. So why am I, you know, some people might say, well, you live alone, aren't you silent all day? Well, no, I'm not. I'm not silent hardly at all. I'm pretty noisy, actually. So I really, there's always something going on in the brain, and, you know, I talk out loud, and I think of recipes and all this stuff that's going on, and I'm, you know, so I immediately, I noticed it's been a process for sure, but now it's a comfort level that I go right into quiet silence. I quiet down my mind and get all those butterflies that were in there to go wherever they're going to go, and the bees can go do what they're going to do, and any little puppies that are trying to get my attention at my ankles, they go away too. What that does for me, I don't even think of it initially. I don't mentalize that I am visioning or that I'm meditating or anything. I'm just getting really quiet. And that takes me places. That takes me to a level of deep within, is the only way I can put it. And that may bring up some visions of other things I hadn't thought about in years, or maybe they bring up some new ideas, some new answers to some things that I didn't know I had a question about. It's just a level of comfort about the connection. So thank you for that question. I really think that's, as Alice said, we could talk about these for a long time. So, and I'd love it to get a copy of this too, Constance, if I may. Get a copy of what you got.
I took a picture. I'll send it to you, Peggy.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I'm complete. Thank you.
The other thing that I recognized while you were talking, Peggy, and I was thinking about my own experience, because I sit and I'm on the computer so much of the time, what I've come to recognize is that what I have to do is something physical, and that's not really on that list. But I've started doing yoga since I actually do yoga twice a week in Vermont, at a studio in Vermont, because she does chair yoga, and now I found a couple chair yogas on YouTube that I really like. So that really helps me. That's where I have to start, is that I have to get back into my body before I can do any of those other things. So, and that's another one that's not on the list, but I think it's really important. Anyone else have something they want to share and about what they do first? Alice?
Yeah, for me, that's a hard question, but I think generally what I do is I was given a mantra by a teacher like probably close to 20 years ago, and I'll say that, or I'll pray. I pray a lot. And I have 3 prayer partners right now, and it keeps me connected with 3 people a week. And it's fabulous. And ever since I took the Power of the Word class, Anthony and I were made prayer partners, and we're still praying. And it is so fabulous, you guys. And, you know, and I start my day, before I get out of bed, I pray for at least a half an hour because that helps me start my day on the right note. So I think that's my favorite, you know, and I have fallen in love with spiritual mind treatments and ever since that class. And it's gotten easy. It's fabulous. I got over the intimidation, which I never thought I would. I'm so happy about it. So I can't say enough about praying. It really works for me.
Thank you. Okay, it's almost time to turn it over to Paul. Paul, is that a good time to turn it over to you?
Yeah, I
Oh,
want.
I wanted to say
Honey.
something.
Go, honey.
Hey,
Um,
Maureen, go for it.
hi. So I was waiting for you guys to be done with the conversation before I brought this up. Constance, this was an amazing talk, and thank you. And the one thing I wanted to talk about was when you were reading about the fact that God isn't or was bored basically, and you know created this wasn't full because it didn't experience the disconnection. I just found that to be very eye-opening for me. And so that to disconnect is to know oneself or to know the other side of it, which I found very interesting, and I would have liked to have talked more about it, but maybe we can some other time. That's it.
Yeah, we can, because I also had a Rumi poem that I wanted to talk about, but it was just way too much. So, yeah, I'd like to get, because that when I read that, that's been working me for quite a while, that whole idea that God was not complete until God knew limitation. The only way God could know limitation was to create us, folk, to do it for him. Do it for it. It's hard when you keep reading the Catholic, you know, they're so good with the hymns. But yeah, so it would be interesting to talk about that some more.
Yeah, it really opened my mind. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so Paul, why don't you take it away then?
Okay, so thank you, Maureen, for that. Duality is what you're ending on, which is what you started with. You know, you can't take care of somebody unless you care for yourself. It's the whole idiom. You can't love someone until you love yourself, the famous RuPaul says every week. You know, God didn't know disconnection until he knew connection, or vice versa. You don't know connection until you know disconnection, right? It's a revelation. So thank you, Constance, for all of that. As far as the music thing, I'm going to be a bad boy and say something that'll probably throw me out of Religious Science Academy, but I have Pandora, and when I'm really desperate and I need to get back to my roots or go to my source, don't kill me, y'all, but I have Pandora where you can put in a genre, and I put in Jane Oliver, and it brings up all the songs of those famous torch women from the 70s, and I go back to Eternal Peace. So, you know, we all have our tool, but give me some Jane Oliver, Karen Carpenter, and Susan Cowsill, and I'm good, you know? So anyways, with that happy note, Constance, thank you. You made us think a lot about our tools and our sources, and it was perfect. And I recognize ways to stay connected in this disconnected world because of you tonight. Other ways we get to stay connected is go through the announcements, and I'll go through them relatively quickly. Next Wednesday, Lucian Baker will be here. He's our practitioner, and he's the coordinator of our youth and family ministry. He is fabulous. And please, he's one of the younger members of our teaching staff, you might say. And he's just vibrant and wonderful. And he'll be speaking on cosmic connections. That's next Wednesday, meditation at 6:30, and the service is at 7. Then on Sunday, October 11th, the fabulous Reverend Sally Bartholomew will be in the pulpit speaking about inextricably connected. Try that one. inextricably connected. I practiced. Meditation is at 10 and service is at 10:30. Also this Sunday, the CALM organization group is meeting. Whoops, there went my message. Compassionate Attention to Loss is meeting after service at 12:30. Join practitioners Zoe DeMuro, Bonnie Gonzalez, and Susan Brecker for an afternoon of support. That's after service on Sunday. The Diversity Circle is meeting this month on Friday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. You can believe it, this is the last circle of 2020. They always take December off. And Doug Myers and Sridevi Ramanthanan, it will be leading a visioning for 2021, another tool off of Constance's list. So that's Friday, October 23rd at 7 p.m. Tomorrow in the Village News, check out the links to all the great election resources coming up at the East Bay Spiritual Activism Ministry, Centers for Spiritual Living, and other venues. The Village News will be coming out tomorrow. We'll also have information about our pledge for 2021. Now it is October and it is our pledge season. It's our pledge drive is here. So in the Village News, it'll give you an opportunity to connect to a link to make your pledge. We won't be doing paper cards this year. We'll be doing digital cards through that format. Also, you may have received an email from Reverend Jeff explaining it. Let's make this a great pledge drive for 2021. It is so important from a business aspect that we commit, as I said earlier, to our physical support of the Oakland Center to maintain its space to invest. I consider my tithe and my annual pledge an investment in my source, in my sanctuary, in my safe place. And I hope you'll consider that. And if you haven't been a part of our pledge drive, it would be really helpful for the business planning of our financial future if you can contribute in that way by pledging. Again, it'll be in the Village News. There's an email, and for those that are not digitally connected, Reverend Jeff is sending letters. As Constance has said, we may not be able to change the world in an instant, but keeping our spiritual center alive and financially healthy is within our power. A big virtual hug and thank you to the many, many people who turned out in a video for our 75th anniversary celebration, and to Zoe DeMuro, who's present with us tonight, bless his heart, for spending hours looking for themes and editing the clips. All of the videos will be posted on our YouTube channel, hopefully by next week. It's a big task, and Constance got plenty of them, so please be patient. Also, if you are part of the parade on Saturday, you received a booklet or a CD of recitations of the prayer book written by our own practitioners as a thank you gift. We have extras of the CDs of the prayer book, and it's available in the courtyard where the Science of Mind magazines usually are. So if you'd like to get that CD to listen to our practitioners recite the prayers that they wrote, please drop by and pick one up. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, The Village News, sent to your email, where a lot of all of this information resides, go to the Oakland Center's website, lower left-hand side of the homepage, and enter your email address and submit it. It has all the information on the upcoming week's events and connection access and information. Also, make sure you check out the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living Village Facebook group, and also check out our YouTube channel. All of these have hot links on our webpage. You can just click and you'll be in. Remember, oaklandcsl.org, our website, is your information shelter. I was good up until that sentence. Remember, oaklandcsl.org is your information central as we shelter in place with grace. Here you can get the Zoom information for the Wednesday and Sunday services. You can see this service if you need to go back and watch it. Free drop-in events, save the date events, and registration information for workshops and special events. We have a bang-up team that works behind the scenes to get Wednesday nights done. Of course, Constance has got triple duty tonight. She had to set up her own breakout rooms, deliver her own talk, had to pray us in, and is going to pray us out in about 1 minute. So, Constance, we always pay honor to you. You're such a resource for the center. You're the heart of the center. Keep us going, both physically and digitally. I want to thank our Zoom host queen, Peggy Cotton out there, and Anthony Prado, Peter Gum, and Alice Knudsen. You guys are the best team in the world, and I appreciate you helping us early and getting us off the ground every Wednesday night. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I owe you big time. And you even make me look good, and that's not an easy task, okay? Now, if I could just spit out the words carefully enough, then you'll have everything. So with that, I'd like to move quickly into our offering. And Peter, if you would show the slide. We have a new offering slide that we're starting on Wednesdays. If you want to read along with me. Joyously I give with an attitude of abundance, knowing that as I give, I do receive. And the way you can do that is through the web page, the central information website. And right up there, right on top where it needs to be is the donate button. You press that donate button, enter your credit card information, and submit it. And it goes right in. It's safe and it's secure. It's easy. It's good bookkeeping for everybody. So if you feel like you are inclined to donate tonight from this experience, please do so through that source. And we're grateful for your donations. I'm grateful for all the gifts, the talent, the time, and the treasure that our folks bring and give and receive and send. So I'm appreciative and I'm grateful. And with that in mind, Constance, if you'll pray us out, we'll be done.
Well, I'd be glad to, but I did notice that Alice was talking about how much she loves to pray, and I'm just wondering if she would like to do it. And if not, I'll be glad to. I know it's putting you on the spot.
Come on, Alice. I prayed us in. Turn on your...
You're muted.
Muted.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm going to let you do it, Constance, because I'm going to feel a little put on the spot.
That's okay.
But I can do
fine. That's fine. All right. So let's just take a breath. And just remember again that there is only God. There's not much more to say except that there is only God, and that God is everywhere present. There is absolutely no place God is not. And even when the appearances appear that there couldn't possibly be God there, God is right there. And just that God is just so God, so divine, so joyful, so full of love. And I am just so grateful for this time we've had together. I am so grateful for everyone who showed up tonight, everyone who spoke, everyone who thought about things, everyone who added to the conversation. And I am so grateful for this community that is so loving and so welcoming. And I just know, usually we say have a safe trip home, but all we have to do is hit the end button and we're already home. It's sort of like we all have red slippers and all we have to do is click them and we're home. And how good it is to know that that means that we're all safe and that we're all taken care of because God is on the job. That God has got the back of every single person here. And so with that, please join me in saying, and so it
So
is.
it is.
So it is.
It is. Thank you, everyone, for being with us. Have a blessed couple of days. We'll see each other on Sunday. See you in Zoom.